it changed the tone. And he said, La tatraba. I say to you the same thing Joseph said to his brothers. Why? Because technically now, he's got a big job to do. He's been doing it very well. But he wants his brothers to help him. They're not there just sitting around, we're going to sit around and run the camels around a circle. Joseph's brothers are participating with him in distributing food, and especially Benjamin. They're there to do certain, now they're taking part in this. They must do a good job because the people are happy with whatever happened. Well, to 400 years later, they say, y'all gotta put them in slavery, stuff like that. There's hints that they took over the cattle industry and then all of that. But we created not the heavens and the earth and all between them, but for just ends. And the hour is surely coming when this will be manifest. So overlook any human faults with gracious forgiveness. Idra, 85. Now, the policy that we have is a Quranic hadith type policy. We're saying to all of our brothers who work diligently for the enemies of Islam, they were in the front row. They worked diligently to stop the movement, to divert the movement. But here's what we say. They were total and they were a complete failure. So we have an open invitation with forgiveness for everybody. Overlook it, forget it. That's what the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did. The Meccans was pretty bad people, man. They wasn't playing. I mean, they come a couple of times for bloody war. So we said in number 3 here from 10 years ago, when you come to Masjid al-Islam, you're on the front seat of present history. I think we could maybe even agree on that. If you come to this masjid, the daily news, the environments, circumstances that we're living under is clear and present. And then we talked about chronicling before, actors and chronicles, okay. Then we talked about writings and history. Even our DVDs over the last years, when we inculcate a staff, because one of the big things about getting some stuff done is standard management. You plan, but before that, you have to have everything organized, right? You have to staff your organization. So therefore, you have to have everything planned and organized and staffed. And then you even have a budget. That's the difference. Over the last 40 years, we've never had a budget. But going into this, we'll have a budget. Why? So we can plan more stable. You know, when you got to go hustle the money in the middle of doing it, that diverts you from what you're doing. But if you got a budget, you're almost certain to be able to do it, or some of it, because you got a budget. Okay. So now, this thing about, we call it strategic Negro national cooperation. Strategic National Negro Cooperation. Yes, yes. Now remember, when you're fighting the monster, this thing about star tracking them and all that, that means that whatever it is that's going to happen has to happen on a bigger, more sophisticated, but open level. Just like you can't do nothing underground, really, but blow up a couple of buildings if you're underground movement, you know, like Weather Underground, or, you know, those guys. Or we had a few of our brothers in the BLA. That was the last stage. Black liberation was underground. You can't do much. Because you can't change the people's minds and ideas. You can, if you got enough going on, you can destabilize a city or a country if you got enough people doing it. You can make everybody jittery and mad, and then they might start thinking about what to do. But if you bring a government down through that destabilization process, your people don't have any experience with running the country. All they have is blowing it up. Blow it up. But then, you gotta come and they said, like in the Mexican Revolution, first Pancho Villa, they had Madero there and they wanted, you know, then they killed poor Madero. Then Pancho Villa was, he was running things for a while. He said, you could keep this, and he left. Then Emiliano Zapata came. And Emiliano Zapata, when you first see him, he's for land reform. The reason he didn't get along with Madero because of land reform. Madero, Francisco Madero, he wasn't going to do no land reform. Because he was a big landed guy, but he was a good, democratic, lovey-dovey fellow, but he wasn't going to do Emiliano Zapata. They wanted land reform because they was all peasants down there. Okay, so for a while, Zapata was doing the presidency, and so a guy came in and he said, we want our land, we want our markers, and then he says, who are you? I'm so-and-so. And then he said, Emiliano Zapata went and got his old bullets and guns, and he said, I'm going with you. And he left the presidency. You know why? Because years ago, when he was a peasant, he was a middle-class guy, he came in and he told the president in those days the same thing that guy was telling him. He said, I gotta go. He was kind of natural, it was good like that. But they didn't have the Mexican Revolution, they didn't have skill. They had skill in robbing trains and shooting people and stuff, but they didn't have management skills. That's why the Mexican Revolution shifted over to guys that were basically crooked. That's what they was. Calles was crooked. They only had one good president. They called him Tata Cardenas. He was back in the 40s. He was a good guy. The rest of them, just like all the presidents you see in Mexico. So if we're going to be reasonably successful, right, we have to have a movement that is trained. That's where all of this stuff comes in. So in our next phase, we implement all of these things. Why? We have to have a system of Masjid that we build. The first one will be on the McDonald's program. We call it the McDonald's. We mentioned that before a long time ago. It'd be like a house like that next door, or you just put a big box on it. That will take about 100 people, you know. But We'll buy a whole house, we can already do stuff like this, right? And we'll have a 6 months training program for imams. We have a 6 months training program for imams. Good guy to do that would be Zaid. Because Zaid up at the Masjid, he does all right. Zaid would be good for that. So he could hook up the curriculum. The things we have to study. Now we're not going to have no studied imams from overseas and all that dumb stuff. Like these little mixed guys are running around here that they have in these masajid now. No. We're going to have the old time imams. So we're going to teach them. See, they was thinking that we would be the last generation of imams that came up in the masjid. And they say, okay, you be the imam. So now you got to study Islam, you got to lead the people, you got to do all of that. That's on-the-job training. That's what Zaid Shakir meant at UCLA that time. He said this Islamic movement cannot be on-the-job training. He's absolutely incorrect. Because it proves itself, none of the people that went overseas and studied Arabic and all of that, they know more literally Islam than any of us. And they do not and cannot do anything. Because they go off ill, not amal. Remember that old article, ill? You got to combine knowledge and work together. Okay? So, and plus, experience is the best teacher. Yeah. Experience is the best teacher. Not the books. People read all them books. The other thing too is, I was listening to one guy, he said the same thing we've been doing for 100 years. The one who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, kind of not a Japanese guy. He is a Japanese.
I forget his name. How you pronounce it?
Yeah.
Kiyosaki?
Kiyosaki.
That's him. I listen to him a lot because he's of the theory, you go to school and they run you crazy. Right? That's what he says. He says, you want a job, you want to go to school. That's what you're going to get. You're never going to get rich, though. You're not going to get any power.
Right. You're
going to go get a job. And they're going to teach you how to do a job. You're at their disposal. That's been our theory all along. That's been our, it's not a theory. I want you to study all the people who are imams. Zayd them, Hamza Yusuf went overseas and studied under his shape. Siraj went to New York University, then he kind of, all of them. I'm not against education, but you remember the old guy, Carter G. Woodson, one of his first book was Miseducation of the Negro, right? We're miseducated. And that sweet flowing Arabic, I don't say nothing about it, but I'm never impressed. I remember the first time back in the 80s, might have been UCLA again. It was LA for sure. Tell you who it was. It was Cat Stevens, Yusuf Islam. He's a good guy though. But he came into Islam and that he was doing tajweed like, and the Egyptian guy next to me that I came to, he was almost in a swoon. And he was saying, those are special rules that he's using, all that. And they were so overwhelmed, Later on, I got to know him somewhat. And so I like him. But Plus he was white. I said, good God Almighty. I mean, but tell the truth. Everybody that come. That's why all the fitna people, for Oakland, our first big fitna, was a whole crew. They was down in Texas at this place called Baituddin. It was a big joint, all paid for by some government, and they had the guy technically was a Shia sheikh, and so the government rolled in on it and they loaded them up with them Negroes. Then after they all in the flow, somebody got drowned in the swimming pool. They all came out to Oakland. And they came, the children had learned a lot of surahs with that beautiful tajweed stuff. They was all Negroes, well, a couple of white folks too. Oh, it was beautiful. They thought that was gonna turn the Iranians and us against, not against, but they was gonna suck up all the oxygen. Because they got what, those beautiful children, can you hear that Quran and stuff? But those Iranians that was in Oakland, Berkeley at that time, was sharp. They knew what was happening. And they came, they tried to do their thing, and it didn't work. Guess what? They did like everybody else. After a couple of years, they packed up and left. The whole crew packed up and left. What I'm saying is, the system has all of that, those resources. The system can start a movement today, and tomorrow they can have all the masajid full of people, or start a movement from the ground up. They can do it. I've seen it many times. They just load in on you. They open a masjid next door to yours. They do whatever they want. They can do that. Since they can do it, I think that's going to cause a lot of trouble on the day of judgment. Because the centers that they build usually fall in line with the one that in the Quran where it says, don't pray in that masjid. It's a masjid of fitna.
Built on the
Foundation of, yeah.
rotten, crumbling foundation.
Right, but this masjid is built on a good foundation. Anyway, let me get back to the trend. So, here we are with a big job to do. But we can't do it by ourselves. We're going to need other people. But this is the time to do that. You know, you're sitting around waiting for a sign. Well, you're not sitting, but you're going about looking for a sign. This is a sign. Clear as a bell. You know, we've had two big signs. Recently, and this year, this is only the first part of the year still. It's only May. In January, Soleimani, Qasem Soleimani was martyred. That was good enough. Instead of going back to California, I stayed here. I stayed here because that was the answer to everything. One of the big answers we talked about it almost every Sunday. Allah hooking the Shias up. The Shias is going to Najaf and Karbala by the millions, right? 20 million, 25 million, 30 million. One of the Iranians down at Daftar, the fact that one of the leaders down there, he said, do you really think it's 30 million? In other words, he was saying they might be exaggerating the numbers a little. I said, it ain't no difference between 20 million and 30 million. So if they exaggerating 10 million, so what? All them people, 2 million people 3 million on a super year go to Hajj every year, and 20 million, 25, let's meet in the middle, 25 million going to Najaf and Karbala. To prevent bombing, they have to have a little security. They do. But it's not a security like the security is against you. And all along the way, they have people with food. They're not selling you food. They're giving you food. They're giving you, oh, you want to rest here? We got a little tent right here. Just pull in and take a rest. Oh, you and your family can rest. You know, go in there and lay down for about an hour, 2 hours. Then leave, and it's all along the way. They feed you, right? They rest you. And it's a wonderful atmosphere. I guess, anyway, let's get back to us. What are we going to do strategically? It might sound ridiculous to say, well, we want to work with the Negroes. What Negroes? The same Negroes that's been working against us all the time. But if you think about it, all they got to do was do like the guys did in Mecca, right? All they got to do is, they don't even have to take their phony shahadas. They can just say, okay. And we organize from right there on the spot. Zayd, you set up the study curriculum, right? He's good at that. He was over at the University of what's the name? Right across the street. American University, right? He's been to Syria. His Arabic is perfect because I sit there and watched him, go through his little stuff there. He's got a crew that he can relate to. He could bring that crew on board. They could be the instructors. They could be the instructors. Remember now, if they incline toward peace, you incline toward peace. If they got something up